Hey, what's the word, YouTube? It's Chill Out Dream. We back with another reaction, man. Happy New Year's, gang. Happy New Year's. This is my first video of the year, bro. It's late right now. My shorty sleep. I would clap it up, but I ain't gonna do all that. She gonna yell at a nigga. But look, listen, bro. It's been a minute since I uploaded a video, fam. So y'all gotta bear with me. We finna get into this Chillin' Scares video. Now we have the horrifying real events behind these memes. It's a little late right now. I'm tired, but we gonna push through it. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I wanted to start this video off right. I've been BSing. I literally was laying down and I was just like, hey bro, come on. I need to give y'all boys something. I know y'all been wanting to hear from me. So let's go. Oh, that's half of a human's brain. What? In January of 2002, a worker at the sewage treatment plant in Bethlehem, right? Bethlehem, PA, discovered half of a human's brain inside a catch basin. What is that? Authorities determined that it had not been there long and it had not come from a hospital or research lab. No DNA has been found. Nigga, it's a brain. I know DNA got found.
The "oh that's real nice" meme comes from an episode of the cartoon SpongeBob SquarePants, where Martin, a side character in the show, looks into a toilet bowl only to find a realistic-looking SpongeBob floating inside. The moment itself tied into the overall plot of that episode, but the meme that came out of it was meant to contrast someone doing an ordinary task like going to the toilet or clocking in at work with an unusual or disturbing discovery. And while most of the posts mentioned completely fictional events, a few instances of the meme format referenced real events that actually happened. This particular incident took place at the Bethlehem wastewater treatment plant on January 7, 2000. A worker named Scott Batchman had clocked into his night shift at around 11 p.m. when he noticed a pink, fleshy object while cleaning out a catch basin. He took it out and rinsed it off to get a clearer look. However, nothing could have prepared him for what that object turned out to be. Scott was holding one half of a human brain in his hand. It was a bit difficult to identify, but Scott's past work experience at a coroner's office allowed him to confirm that it was real and not a prop. He immediately contacted the authorities and handed it over to them. This discovery happened on a Friday night, so a proper analysis didn't happen until Monday. However, according to initial reports, the brain looked like it was fresh and had not been in the sewer system for very long. The situation became
that's disgusting, fool.
Worse when it was sent over to a DNA lab for testing, which confirmed that it belonged to a person. Unfortunately, authorities had no matching DNA on record, making it impossible to determine whose brain it was. The treatment plant also received waste from 13 different municipalities, so they couldn't link it to a nearby missing person report either. The question now was, how did a piece of human brain end up in the sewer system in the first place? One possible explanation the authorities considered was that it came from a medical cadaver, suggesting that a medical student might have flushed it down the drain either on purpose or somehow by accident. Wow. However, the lack of any major decomposition pointed to a much darker possibility. The brain likely came from the victim of a homicide, with the killer attempting to destroy evidence by dismembering the body and flushing the pieces down the toilet one by one. And unfortunately, it seems their plan worked as intended. The investigators were never able to link the discovery to any reported crimes, leaving the case an unsolved mystery to this day.
A brain, though, gang?
The traumatized Mr. Incredible meme depicts a normal-looking Mr. Incredible next to a haunting, uncanny version of him. The template uses a before and after format to highlight how hidden context changes a person's perspective, where people who don't know see a surface-level image or phrase and remain blissfully ignorant, represented by a smiling Mr. Incredible. In contrast, people who know understand the dark, tragic, or disturbing reality behind the subject, represented by his hollow-eyed, traumatized face. This specific version of the meme refers to a silent tragedy that occurred in many parts of Mexico in the late 1980s, and the cause for it originated over 7,000 miles or more than 11,000 kilometers away in Ukraine. On April 26, 1986, the Chernobyl nuclear plant suffered the worst nuclear disaster in history. During a botched safety test, a massive power surge caused Reactor 4 to explode, releasing a plume of radioactive fallout that drifted across Europe. The immediate blast killed 2 workers, while dozens more lost their lives to acute radiation sickness shortly after trying to contain the fallout. However, by the time they were able to enclose the malfunctioning reactor, it had already spread massive clouds of toxic, radioactive particles across Europe and Asia. Mexico, in theory, should have been far enough from the disaster site to stay unaffected. In reality, government corruption and greed turned it into a problem that ordinary Mexicans were forced to live with in their day-to-day lives. You see, radioactive particles from the Chernobyl meltdown contaminated crops and livestock across Europe and Asia, making a significant portion of their food unsafe for consumption. Ireland was among the more heavily affected countries, with thousands of tons of milk in the region becoming radioactive. The Irish government tried to get rid of this contaminated milk by selling it to poorer countries. And after getting rejected by Brazil, they reached an agreement with the Mexican government to sell 40,000 tons of radioactive powdered milk at discounted prices. The toxic milk reached Mexico in June 1987 and was then distributed across the country by a state-owned company called Conasupo. It made its way into ordinary households where consumers had no idea they were drinking what was essentially poison. The truth finally came out when Navy Vice Admiral Manuel Rodriguez Gordillo commissioned a nuclear physicist to test the milk. And as it turned out, the milk the Mexican government bought from Ireland exceeded 10 times the permitted limits of radioactivity. The government initially tried to suppress the news by accusing the whistleblower of defamation.
Gang, that's crazy, folks. And I be thinking about stuff like that, bro. Whenever meat be going on sale and stuff, I be like, bro, what's wrong with that meat? Like, why it's so cheap, gang? You know what I'm saying? Y'all never think about stuff like that. Y'all look at meat and be like, bro, they don't look like no regular meat, folks. Like,
stripping them of their position and putting them in prison. But the backlash got bad enough that the government was forced to issue a complete recall by January 1988. Unfortunately, the damage was already done. Over the following decade, the number of children suffering from cancer skyrocketed drastically. Many endured life-altering deformities, while countless others lost their lives because of it. Even those who survived the initial radiation poisoning now face a higher risk of developing cancer later in life.
No, bro. All because these niggas want to make
some money. It seems like
MFW, I'm urban exploring in China and found in an abandoned area. It reeks of rotten flesh and I almost consider turning back, but I persist. I turn a corner and look down and I am greeted by the sight of a dozen of fossilized child corpses floating in a murky and deep puddle. Bro, who is making these memes, gang? Who just sits there and makes these memes and be like, oh yeah, this the one, folks. This the one. Like, nigga, there's some sick niggas out here, folks. Like, real life.
The deeply unsettling Mr. Incredible meme illustrates a person's reaction to discovering something truly horrifying. The template is often paired with a caption highlighting disturbing events or shocking facts, and this particular use of it is no different. It summarizes the horrific sight a Chinese explorer named Beanbag Adventures uncovered in February 2022. Beanbag's content on Douyin, which is the Chinese version of TikTok, revolved around him exploring abandoned buildings and showcasing any interesting finds. However, one of these adventures spiraled into a nightmare his viewers could have never imagined. The video started with him entering an abandoned hospital or lab of some kind. It was extremely run down and appeared to have been vacant for over a decade, if not more. Broken furniture, torn clothes, and glass jars were everywhere. But what really caught Beanbag's attention weren't these items. He was more drawn to the overpowering smell that was filling the whole building. Curious, he decided to find its source. He followed the paths where the smell grew stronger and eventually reached a strange, dilapidated room with a pool in the middle of it. He looked inside the pool and before showing it to his viewers, claimed that it was filled with movie props. The pool was filled with what looked like the remains of dozens of children floating in a mysterious liquid. He spent barely a minute inside this room before the smell became too unbearable and he had to run out gagging for air. The horrifying sight left most of his viewers in shock, with many also trying to figure out if any of it was real. But for now, many accepted his movie prop explanation and didn't question it further, especially since the alternative was far too gruesome for most to even contemplate. A lot of the remains also showed few signs of decomposition, making it easier to buy into the prop theory. However, the possibility of these remains being real became impossible to ignore when Beanbag returned to the same location 10 months later. This time, he decided to explore the rest of the building before going back to the pool room. Unfortunately, the other locations proved to be just as disturbing. I can't show most of this on YouTube, but he discovered rooms full of extremely realistic human skeletons, children's toys and masks, and a few glass jars with what looked like human fetuses stored inside them. Things somehow got even worse when he returned to the pool room and found things that weren't there before, like glass jars and children's clothes on the ground.
What do you mean, nigga? You mean he said human fetuses, bro? How do you do that? How do you put that in a glass jar, gang? There's only one way that I'm thinking about, folks. Oh my god, bro. What is this, gang?
And most unsettling, a blue tarp partially covering the pool. This showed that someone else had been in that room in the last 10 months. But that wasn't even the worst part. The most disturbing part of Beanbag's second visit came when he pointed his camera at the pool. It not only contained more remains than before, but many of the previous ones were also noticeably more decomposed than last time, disproving his movie prop claim. Though, given what people now know about the situation, it seemed he called them movie props just so he could feign ignorance in case he ever got into trouble. It also helped in keeping the videos from getting removed from the platform. Put simply, Beanbag and now most of his audience suspected that this room was a part of an illegal organ harvesting operation known as a corpse factory. You see, China has one of the lowest organ donor rates in the world due to cultural reasons. Yet, despite this limitation, the process of actually getting an organ for a transplant is relatively easy as long as you have the money. That's because most of these organs are said to come from China's massive black market, where merchants illegally abduct victims to meet the demand. Some reports also claim that the Chinese government is somehow involved in this operation as well, with it allegedly harvesting from minority prisoners that aren't even on death row. Even if the government wasn't involved, Beanbag was putting a target on himself by possibly exposing such a large-scale criminal operation. So, acting clueless was his best bet. But even then, his safety wasn't guaranteed. Fans were worried about his well-being. This concern became even more substantial when Beanbag's Douyin account got terminated out of nowhere shortly after posting the second video. Viewers believed that whoever Beanbag exposed was trying to silence him before the story could spread further. Though, just as they were about to lose hope, Beanbag returned to the internet with new videos. However, the 2 videos of him exploring the hospital were now deleted from his account. Beanbag also kept posting more videos exploring other abandoned buildings and never even brought up the hospital again. If someone was trying to silence him, wouldn't it be easier to make him disappear, or at the very least keep him off the internet forever? So, what's going on here? Well, the internet has come up with many theories trying to solve this very question, but nearly all of them contain contradictions or details that don't align with the known facts.
That's weird,
The most
bro.
popular of these theories is that the room was used to discard victims after harvesting their organs. But here's the thing, if someone was actually running a massive criminal operation, wouldn't it be much safer for them to hide the evidence in mass graves or use industrial incinerators to cremate the remains? Especially if the Chinese government was involved, as many suspect. As for his account getting temporarily banned, that could be explained by Douyin simply taking it down due to the excessive gore his videos showed, which is also why he was allowed to return after deleting those videos. Alternatively, some also believe that this room was the trophy room of sorts for a serial killer. But the sheer number of victims makes that highly unlikely, even if it was a group of multiple
this is creeping
killers.
me out, bro.
Then there's also the possibility that Beanbag faked the whole
Like, this is honestly creepy, gang. Just imagine that, bro. How do you walk through a room like this? Like, what goes on in a nigga mind to want to explore something like this and to not only do it once, but to go back? Like,
thing to go viral, or that it was an art project of sorts. And while he wouldn't be the first one to try something like this, the remains in the pool were way too real to be fabrications. Beanbag would also have to spend tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to commission such a large quantity of props for both videos, all without getting any real return on his investment. So the remains were most likely real. Unfortunately, there's no way for us to determine how they got there. Beanbag stopped uploading in April 2024 and hasn't returned to the internet since. He also never shared the location of the building, so no one else can investigate it either. And as far as I was able to find, the authorities never looked into this, leaving this whole thing unsolved, possibly forever.
Shoes kind of look hard. All you did was take a pill your boss gave you for your UTI. You haven't slept in months. You know you will die. What will happen to your son? Bro, what? What the freak?
This meme recounts the tragic life of Ricard Siagan, a 48-year-old tattoo artist from Philadelphia who lost everything he had in a single year. Ricard had two passions in life, his only son and art. He created music, did photography, and eventually settled into a career as a tattoo artist. He also shared videos of his tattoo work on YouTube quite often, likely just to document his own progress. Every second he wasn't working, he spent with his son. He had a seemingly perfect life, and was still striving to do better for the only person in his life. Unfortunately, this perfect life was ripped away from Ricard in 2015. This was the year he moved to Philadelphia and started working there as a tattoo artist. However, months into his new employment, he contracted a urinary tract infection, or UTI for short. The pain was so severe that it made it impossible for him to work. But since his insurance didn't cover UTIs, he couldn't afford to go to a doctor. With no other option, Ricard spoke to his boss about his illness, hoping for help or at least some guidance. And as it turned out, his boss had also gone through a UTI recently. His boss still had some of the antibiotics his doctor prescribed, which he happily handed over to Ricard. Ricard was a bit skeptical at first, but a single dose dramatically reduced his pain. So he kept taking the antibiotics and was soon well enough to return to work. But before he could celebrate his recovery, Ricard noticed another major health concern. He was experiencing insomnia, making it difficult for him to sleep each night. Unfortunately, that was only the beginning. The insomnia was getting worse with each passing day. 4 months in, and it became severe enough to prevent him from sleeping altogether. None of the treatments he tried worked, and he was rapidly running out of options. So, in January 2016, he uploaded a video asking for the internet's help, titled, "Che Fatal Insomnia Neurotoxin Induce, CNS Seeking Neuroscience Hospital Support or Stem Cell Hope," where he went over all the disturbing details of his condition.
Wow.
My brain also looking forward to sleep, but the activity of the brain is never calmed down. It's been 4 months since my brain is active. It never sleep. It never want to go down. And when my body asks my brain that I need to rest and sleep, there's no connection, but there is a feedback. There is a really painful feedback, physical feedback and neuron feedback.
Wow, bro. Yo, that's scary. Yo, dang. Imagine not being able to sleep. Not being able to sleep, bro. No.
Ricard explained his condition as fatal familial insomnia, a devastating neurological disorder that essentially locks the brain in a state of permanent wakefulness. It's caused by a genetic mutation that targets the thalamus, the section of the brain responsible for transitioning the mind from consciousness into sleep. What made the already terrible situation even more tragic was that he was also separated from his son. He had to return to Indonesia due to his mother's hospitalization. But the insomnia now left him bedridden, unable to fly back to his son in Philadelphia. Ricard still wanted to do everything in his power to survive for his son, but the constant unbearable pain was also sapping away his will to live.
Wow.
I need life. I have my sons in Philadelphia now. I left him. I have no choice. Because I don't want to leave him. I need life. I need to survive. I don't want him to lose me. I don't want to lose him.
From there, Ricard kept posting updates on his condition, and even shows what happens anytime he tried to sleep. But here's the thing, Ricard wasn't suffering from fatal familial insomnia, because that disease is genetic. It's not something someone can just contract out of nowhere, and no one in his family had this prior to him. Instead, Ricard's neurological issues were the side effects of ciprofloxacin, the antibiotic Ricard took from his boss for his UTI. Ciprofloxacin falls under a type of drug known as fluoroquinolones, and they are incredibly dangerous. Taking them without proper precaution can cause total neurological degradation. Unfortunately, even after knowing what it was, Ricard couldn't do anything, and his condition was getting worse with each passing day. He was starting to get delirious and began posting rants that made little sense.
Conspiracy theory has never been a theory. It's a practice. So the world that created by the system.
Without sleep, the cells in his body were also starting to die, leaving him even more immobilized than before. He received some hope from a doctor in Beijing who offered a cutting-edge procedure that had previously worked for one patient. However, the procedure's cost was beyond what Ricard could afford. And while he did set up a fundraiser, the donations never reached the required amount. And after struggling with his condition for over a year, Ricard sadly passed away on the 6th of December 2016 in Indonesia.
Dang. No, bro. Rest in peace to him, bro. That's freaking crazy.
The traumatized
people
mystery
making memes about this dude. Like, how is that? Like, how is that even a meme, bro? Like, memes supposed to be funny, nigga. It's supposed to be something that you laugh at and just ha 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 and then scroll, nigga.
incredible in this instance is a reference to the death of Isaiah Fitzgerald, an 18-year-old teen from Missouri who lost everything due to an internet argument. The incident happened on April 25, 2023, when a guy named Tanner Watkins uploaded a new profile picture on Facebook with his girlfriend, to which Isaiah reacted with a laughing reaction. The two were friends on Facebook, but it's unclear how close they were. Regardless of their connection, Tanner did not take kindly to Isaiah's reaction and called him out in the post's comments. Their discussion quickly divulged into an argument and ended with the two agreeing to meet.
Wait, I'm on the way to handle it.
Each other in person to settle things. The vast majority of internet arguments usually end here, with both sides moving on with their lives.
I'll be on Facebook laughing like I don't care about you. Definitely feeling some type of way. We really out here posting our Cash App on Facebook. When I win, I bet yo, ugly A don't even know what's going on, but got an opinion. He must, I ain't gonna lie, he must know this girl or something, bro. Cause no nigga would do something like that if they don't know the
but
girl.
It's unclear how close they were. Regardless of their connection, Tanner did not
You feel me? Let me see. Yeah, no nigga would do that unless they know the girl or something. Like he must knew the shorty or something.
Friend, to which Isaiah reacted with a laughing reaction. The two were friends on Facebook, into an argument, and ended with the two agreeing to meet each other in person to settle things. The vast majority of internet arguments usually end here, with both sides moving on with their lives. However, both Tanner and Isaiah were serious about this confrontation. After agreeing on the spot and time, they met up at the Rotary Park in Sikeston, and unfortunately neither side was open to a discussion. As soon as they got close to each other, both opened fire from their cars.
What?
Isaiah was fatally shot seconds after the shootout started and passed away before help could arrive. The 18-year-old girl Isaiah brought with him also received life-threatening injuries. Fortunately, she managed to pull through after multiple surgeries. As for Tanner, he somehow managed to avoid conviction for the death of Isaiah, though he
What?
was eventually sentenced to 7 years in prison for an unrelated shooting in 2025.
This is what I'm saying. This is crazy, bro. Crashed out over what, bro? Nothing. What a lovely day on September 30th. In Winsfield. I'll use this bottle of Tylenol. Oh my God. You know what's crazy? I already know what this is, bro. I already know what this about, bro.
This meme is about a deadly attack that happened in Chicago in 1982 regarding Tylenol pain relief capsules. On the morning of September 29, a 12-year-old girl named Mary Kellerman took a capsule of extra-strength Tylenol to soothe a sore throat, but instead of feeling relief, she collapsed and passed away shortly after. That same day, a 27-year-old postal worker named Adam Janis also took Tylenol for his headache. Seconds later, he suffered what appeared to be a heart attack and tragically passed away. While his family gathered to mourn his death, his brother Stanley and sister-in-law Teresa each took Tylenol from the same bottle Adam had used. Within hours, those two were dead as well. By the time the connection was made, 3 more people, including 27-year-old Mary Reiner, 31-year-old Mary McFarland, and 35-year-old Paula Prince had also lost their lives. Testing revealed that the Tylenol capsules they had consumed were laced with potassium cyanide, one of the deadliest poisons in the world. And since the victims were spread across different suburbs, investigators quickly realized this wasn't a manufacturing error. Someone had gone into local grocery stores and pharmacies, pulled bottles off the shelves, laced the capsules with poison, and put them back to be purchased by unsuspecting strangers. Investigators had no way.
This has always been crazy to me, gang. And ever since I heard about this story, bro, I don't like taking pills like that, especially Tylenol, folks. You know what I mean? Tom, just like, bro, damn, my head hurting, bro. Don't you go take a Tylenol? Like, nigga, what? And they had niggas like back then doing stuff like this, folks. Nah, bro. Crime was at a premium back then, gang. Y'all talking about it was bad. Like, it's bad now with the YNs. Niggas was doing this back in the day.
Of knowing how many other poison bottles were still on the shelf.
So,
in an unprecedented move,
for the love of the game, nigga, they don't even care who got killed. They just doing it.
The makers of Tylenol, Johnson & Johnson, stepped forward. They issued a nationwide recall of approximately 31 million bottles, a value of over
Johnson & Johnson. Wasn't Johnson & Johnson the same niggas that was doing the vaccines?
$100 million at the time. Authorities also urged the public not to take any Tylenol product, and for good reason. In the early 1980s, over-the-counter medicine was sold in simple bottles with easy-to-open caps. There were no plastic neck seals, no foil liners, and no tamper-evident stickers. The realization that a complete stranger could turn a common household item into a weapon of mass murder changed this mindset overnight. In response to the tragedy, the FDA introduced stringent new regulations. Within 6 months, Tylenol returned to shelves in the first ever triple seal packaging. This included a glued outer box, a plastic wrap around the cap, and a foil seal over the mouth of the bottle. However, even this was not a perfect solution. In the months and years following the attack, police stations across the US were flooded with hundreds of copycat reports. And while many of these were hoaxes, some turned out to be legit. Like in 1986, when 23-year-old Diane Ellsroth died after taking a Tylenol capsule laced with cyanide in New York. That same year, another medication named Excedrin was targeted in Washington state, leading to 2 more deaths. These attacks forced the pharma industry to evolve this packaging further and make poisoning more difficult. However, while the attack led to an overall positive change, the original 7 victims never received the justice they deserved. Despite a massive investigation, a $100,000 reward for information, and several suspects, no one was ever charged with the actual murders. One of the suspects, named James Lewis, actually contacted Johnson & Johnson, claiming he would stop the killings if they sent him $1 million in ransom. But investigation revealed that he had nothing to do with the actual attack. He was just trying to take advantage of an already tragic situation. The most popular theory is that this attack was carried out by one of Johnson & Johnson's competitors to ruin their reputation, which makes a lot of sense considering Tylenol's market share dropped from 35% to 8% following the incident. That said, it could still have been the work of a deranged serial killer intent on claiming as many lives as possible. Unfortunately, investigators found no solid clues like fingerprints or CCTV footage that could help us confirm.
Yeah, it was somebody. I'm surprised he didn't mention it, bro. But it was somebody who found a box of Tylenols around this time. They found a whole box of Tylenols, folks. And they didn't. And they called it in. And like, I don't know. It was like just like a random box on the street, gang. You feel me? I don't know. This is crazy though. Y'all go ahead, like, comment, subscribe, bro. Yeah, I don't know what the heck going on, bro. Y'all boys stay prayed up. Y'all boys stay blessed. Have a good night, man.
I'm in the booth full of tree, walking shit down on my feet. These niggas, they want me to look like me. No, they can't drill like me.